Hi! Today we're going to look into how we can write code that repeats itself. So one of the major advantages of programming a computer is so you can repeat operations over and over again without having to do them manually or by hand. And one of the key mechanisms we use to repeat execution, to repeat lines of code, is to use what's called the for loop. So the for loop allows us to repeat. So it allows us to perform repetitive actions. And so the template we have for this is this. And so I'm going to show you the syntax and I'll explain the semantics. So we have for something in something else, colon. Okay, so let's dive into what goes in between these. So we've got for some kind of a loop variable in some kind of sequence. Okay, and what I have in these angle brackets, or the greater than and less than signs, this is what you fill in for the template. So the for, in, and colon are always there. But the purple bits, these are the things that you pick, that you customize to make your loop do what you want it to. So you pick the variable's name. And you get to pick the sequence. The sequence could be a string, right? So a string of letters. It could be a list of things. It could be a range of numbers, which we'll talk about how we can get a range of numbers easily in a minute. And so we have a bunch of different options here, but the template remains the same. Inside the for loop, we do our repeated stuff. And it's probably with the loop variable, but not always, but probably with the loop variable. Okay, one thing I'd like you to note, let's change colors yet again, is that anything inside the for loop, anything inside the for loop, anything that you want repeated must be indented. And so you might notice that this is indented some. Maybe it's a couple spaces. It could be a tab. Anything like that. You just have to be consistent. So just be consistent for the whole program. Awesome. Okay. So Python doesn't care what the space is, but it cares that it's consistent for the entire program. Okay, good. So now let's look at an example. Okay? Let's look at an example of a for loop here. So I'm going to go back, change my color yet again. Let's try to do a loop with a string. So here's an example, for care in hello. Now I'm using a string literal here. It could also be a variable. So I've created my loop variable is care and my sequence is hello. And inside my for loop, I would like to print out my care. So what this will output, let's see if we can be consistent in the colors here. This will output each letter of hello on its own line. H-E-L-L-O. Does everybody see that? So we're taking this step, printing a character. So for each character in the string hello, I'm going to print it out. Remember, print includes a new line, right? So after every time print is called, I'm on a new line. So print is actually called once for each letter in the string, Hello. Okay. So we'll take a couple notes on that here. So print executes once for each letter in the string hello. Good. And the way this works, at every repetition of the loop variable, in this case char, is getting the next value in the sequence. And in this case, our sequence is hello. Okay? All right. So that's a basic loop that prints out each letter of a string. So that's one kind of sequence. The other kind of sequence we want to use is a numeric sequence. But first, let me tell you a little bit about how we can do that. Okay, so we're going to scroll down a little bit. And so we are going to be using what's called the range function. So semantics of range. There exists a range function. If we call it like this, range of x, it's going to start at the number 0 and give us a sequence of numbers up through, but not including x. And so you may be familiar with this notation method in math class, that a square brace is including 0, but excluding x. Okay, and that's what the parenthesis means. It excludes x. Up through, but not including. Okay, but there's more parameters that I can possibly pass this range function. I could have range comma xy, which would start at x and go up through, but not including y. I can also have a start, stop, and a step. I can do range of x, y, z, which would start at x, go up through but not including y, but would increment by z. And if you want to read more about this, you can on the Python documentation. So just to make a special note, so x is the start, y is the stop, and z is the step. That's what this is called. Okay, so we have our semantics of range. Now, I want to use the range function to be able to write a for loop that prints out some numbers. So let's look at an example here. So for is my template, I is the name of my loop variable, in, and I want to give it a range. So let's say for I in range 4. Okay. And just so we know, this is going to, range 4 will start at 0 and goes up through, but not including 4. So can you guess what's going to be output by this loop? Oh wait, at the moment, nothing's going to be output by the loop because I'm missing an important component. What step is going to be repeated? What statement is going to be repeated at every repetition of loop? I want to actually print out the numbers that I'm getting with this range. Awesome. Okay, so now I've got for I in range 4, I'm going to print out I. I is going to start at 0 and go up through, but not including 4. So this loop is going to output 0, 1, 2, and 3. Okay? Now, I had mentioned before that not every loop is going to make use of its loop variable, right? So over here I said probably with the loop variable. Let's look at an example that doesn't use the loop variable. So we'll do one more example for, I'll just say letter L in, in range 10, I'm going to print hello. Okay, so in this example, I'm not actually using the loop variable L in what I'm printing. Can you guess what's going to get printed out here? If you said hello, 10 times, let me do that. Let me be consistent with our colorings. If you said hello 10 times, all on different lines, then you are absolutely correct. Okay, so that's my